and welcome to another edition of What We've Been Reading here at Catholic Mom and Daughter. I'm Jennifer and this is Kate, and today we're reviewing the books that we read in December and January for you.
So we definitely had some extra reading time over winter break, which we put to good use. So we had some books that we absolutely loved. There was another one though that was a big flop. We both agree on that. So let's go ahead and dive right in and see how it all panned out. The first book we have today is The Way of the Wilderness by Martha Rebin. So this is the sequel to The Healing Woods, which we talked about in a later video. We'll have it linked. And I read this one over winter break and I loved it. It is full of some amazing stories. We start with the author buying a house and then we follow her to another camping season on Weller Pond. So it's the return of old friends, you meet new friends, there are twists and turns, and overall this book was 5 stars. Obviously I don't have it with me here today. We had to get it through interlibrary loan, but I'll have a picture up on the screen. So I couldn't recommend this book more, especially if you love nature memoirs, and we're now excited to be able to move on and read book 3, which just came in for us on Friday.
Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and start with our book flop, the one that didn't work for us. And it was this one, The Thoughtful Girl's Guide to Fashion, Communication, and Friendship by Mary Sheehan Warren, which I had high hopes for. We read it for school, and it covers a lot of topics. The target audience is teenagers, so it talks about job interviews and fashion and friendship, which are all good things for teenage girls to know. And the author is also Catholic, so it seemed like all systems go. And I have another of her books called It's So You about fashion that I just love. So I thought this was going to be a winner all around, but it wasn't. And trying to figure out why, I think it was because she covered too many topics. It was a random mix of information, and she even had some odd biographies thrown in here and there of random people. So it just didn't seem to work. And then the other thing that I didn't like about this book is that she lapsed at times into what I call cutesy language, you know, that chick lit, we're all girlfriends type of writing, which I just really don't like. So we did finish it. Kate didn't want to, but I kept saying, oh, it's going to be good. Her other book was so good, but it just didn't pan out for us. So I don't know who exactly this book is written for. It's definitely not for older teenage girls. It could be for maybe 11 or 12-year-olds, 13 maybe, but then again, not many 11 and 12-year-olds are shopping for a wedding dress or going on a job interview or sending their boss an email. So if you're thinking about using this book, you know, if you have teenage daughters and you're thinking, oh, this might be a good resource for them, I would suggest that you get it through interlibrary loan or maybe borrow it from someone and just get a good look at it before you purchase it, because it might not be exactly what you're thinking.
So the next book I have is actually 3 books, and they are books 2, 3, and 4 in the Faith and Kung Fu series. So these were the very first books that I read this year. I got book 4 for Christmas, but I hadn't read 2 or 3, so I had to go and catch up with the series to finally be able to read book 4. So book 2 is Saving Faith, and it follows our character Faith as she feels very hampered in and cut off by her parents' rules, and so she starts to retaliate and push outside and break them, and we get to see what happens as a result of that. And it is a very relatable situation for a lot of teens, and the author handles it very, very well. Then book 3 is Guarding Aaron. We meet our character Aaron, who is really struggling at home and at school. And through both of these, we're also continuing to follow our main characters that we met in book 1, Freeing Tanner Rose. So it's fun to see where they're all going and what is happening in their lives. And then book 4, Loving Gabriel, wraps it all up. There's a lot of tension, there's a lot of drama in this book, but ultimately it's a very satisfying conclusion. And the series as a whole is so relatable, it's so well written, and it really shows the beauty of the Catholic faith. So 5 out of 5 stars. Definitely check it out if you haven't already.
My next book was a definite hit for me, and it's this one, Codename Lee's The True Story of the Woman Who Became World War II's Most Highly Decorated Spy. So I'm a history buff. I love to read about World War II especially, so when I saw this at a library sale, I bought it and brought it home. All right, so things that I liked about this book. Number one, it's a true story. Odette Sampson was a French woman living in England, married to an Englishman, when World War II broke out, but she still volunteered to go back into France and be a member of the resistance during World War II. So it's a very exciting story from start to finish, and all of the conversations in this book were taken from primary source documents. So when you're reading about what the people said to each other in the book, that is pretty much actually what they said to each other. The author used those primary source documents to create his story, so that is really cool. There were a couple of hard things about this book for me though. Number one, Odette was the mother of 3 little girls under the age of 10, and her husband was out fighting, so she still chose to leave them. So that decision was really hard for me as a mother to understand, and it was very hard for her, so I'm not really judging her. I'm just saying, like, I don't think I could have done that. The other hard thing is that she was ultimately captured as a spy and spent several years as a German prisoner of war. And so some of those details were definitely hard to read, including her stay in Ravensbrück concentration camp. So overall, I would say this is a great book for your history-loving family members. If you homeschool and you have teenagers studying World War II, this definitely would be a good book for them. I'm just going to say though, you probably don't want to read this one in bed at night, because then you will not want to go to sleep. You will want to stay up reading into the late hours to see what happens next. My verdict, 5 stars.
The next book I have is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. So this was actually recommended to us by my grandmother, who read it and thought we might like it, and we ended up reading it for school. So this follows our protagonist, Francie, who is growing up in Brooklyn, New York in the early 1900s. It is a coming-of-age story, so we get to follow Francie as she grows up. We get to see what her life is like and what her family is like, all the people she met. And this book is really like taking a snapshot of that time in history. And Betty Smith is also a very, very good writer. So what you have right here is some high-quality historical fiction. So this would be great if you homeschool for high school reading, or of course you could just read it and enjoy it on your own.
Next up for me is this one, The Salt of the Earth by Andre Froussard. This one came to me through our church library. If you watched our big Catholic library unboxing video, this was one of the books, and I said I would probably read it, and I did, and it was so good. So it's basically the story of several different religious orders and how they came to be and what they do all day, which I know that could sound really dull, but it's not, because the author, in typical fashion for these older authors, has a very subtle humor that runs throughout the whole book. He also illustrated it with these really fun drawings that go all through the book, and I think the author is also the illustrator. I was not able to confirm that, but these are really unique, and I just really enjoyed seeing them all as I read the book. I think the last thing that I wanted to share about this book was something the author said up front that really hit me. He mentioned that in the olden days, the days of Ignatius of Loyola or Francis of Assisi, those saints were really focused on themselves. How can I be a better disciple for Christ? How can I love Jesus more? How can I serve him better? Whereas today, we are more concerned with telling other people how they can improve. And I thought, isn't that just so true? You know, how you can have a better Advent, or how you can do this or that. And maybe we just need to step back and look at ourselves more. So that was an interesting point from this book that I really appreciated, and I definitely give this one 5 stars.
The last book I have to share today is George Washington Spy Master by Thomas Allen. So we just finished this book last week for school. It's from National Geographic, and it talks you through all of the spying that went on during the Revolutionary War. So we get to see what Washington was doing, how he started all of this, hence the title, but we also get to see all the different people involved and some of the crazy exploits that they pulled off, all in the name of winning the war. And so much of the stuff that was in this book I never knew about. It was really eye-opening. That being said, I might have enjoyed it more if I hadn't had to read it for school. There's a lot of people and places and dates to try to remember, but giving credit where it's due, this book is fascinating. And there is an entire Revolutionary War code in the back, like the cipher, and they give you messages to decipher, so that's a fun bonus. And we liked this so much that we decided to go on with the series and read their book about Harriet Tubman. So we might talk about that one in an upcoming book wrap-up video.
My last book was a Christmas present, and it's this one, Counterfeit Christ by Trent Horn. So he's an apologist for Catholic answers, and I really enjoy reading his books. In this one, he talks about 18 phony versions of Jesus that are out there in society. For example, is Jesus your non-judgmental buddy? Or is he the health and wealth prosperity preacher? Or maybe he's the mythical Messiah. He didn't really ever exist at all. So in his books, his arguments are so well laid out, and just as a regular layperson, I can follow them quite easily, which is good because I teach catechism, and sometimes these fake Jesuses creep in, and the kids want to know, why do the Mormons say this, or why do people say relativism is okay? And this book gives me the tools I need to help them understand why those different interpretations of Jesus are not necessarily right. So if you're interested in apologetics at all, this is a great resource, but I also think this is a great one for teenagers who are wanting to learn more about world religions, or maybe they're looking for answers about relativism or socialism and why that just doesn't mesh with our Catholic beliefs. This is a great resource for them. Definitely, it was one of my favorite Christmas presents, and I give it 5 stars. So that's a look at what we've been reading the past 2 months. It is just a shame about this one because we had such high hopes for it. But if you've read it and you liked it, let us know down in the comments what you thought. Maybe you can change our minds.
But in any case, also let us know what you've been reading lately. We'd love to hear from you, and maybe we'll get some good book recommendations. So we hope you enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye!